All right, let's dive right in. You ever see a stock pop and just wonder what is really going on under the hood? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to be detectives and use the hard data to decode one really fascinating day for Intel stock.
And wow, what a day it was. Just look at that number, a massive 3.36% gain. Now, on the surface, that looks absolutely fantastic, right? A huge win for anyone holding Intel. But you and I both know that big green number, well, it's just a headline. It's only the first page of the story. So the real question is, what's the data actually telling us? Is this the beginning of a huge run-up, or is there something a little more complicated going on here? Let's find out together.
Okay, so here's what we know. These are the facts from the case file. Intel closed up at $38.16. And get this, 122 million shares were traded. That is a ton of activity, and that's exactly where our investigation starts.
So our very first clue is all about figuring out the stock's general direction. You know, is it swimming with the current, or is it fighting against it? We've got to follow the trend.
To do that, analysts have this fantastic tool called moving averages. The best way to think about it is like this. A stock's daily chart is kind of like a bumpy road with all its little potholes and cracks. The moving average smooths all of that out so you can see the actual path the road is taking. It just shows you the real direction.
And boom, here's our first piece of hard evidence. Intel's price right now, $38.16, is sitting clearly above its 5-day average of $37.66. In the world of technical analysis, that's a classic textbook positive signal. It tells us the short-term energy is pointing straight up.
And it's not just a one-off thing either. The price is above all the key short-term averages. But here's the real kicker. Look at that 200-day average, all the way down at $23.59. Intel is trading miles above its long-term trend. So, clue 1, it's pointing loud and clear in one direction. The trend is absolutely bullish.
Okay, so we've established the car is pointed uphill. Great, but does it have enough gas in the tank to actually make it to the top? That brings us to clue number 2. Does this trend have the energy, the momentum, to keep on climbing?
For this, we look at something called the Relative Strength Index, or RSI. And honestly, the best way to think of it is like the tachometer in your car. It just tells you how hard the engine is working. If that needle gets way up into the red zone, the engine is being pushed too hard, and it's probably going to need to cool down. In the stock world, we call that overbought.
So, what's Intel's reading? 67.52. Now, that red zone for the RSI, that's usually anything over 70. So, at 67.5, Intel isn't redlining yet. But man, it is getting seriously close. This is our first little yellow flag. The engine is running pretty hot.
And this is where the plot really thickens. Another momentum tool, called the MACD, is giving us a mixed signal. See, the overall MACD number is positive, that's bullish. But this other part, the MACD histogram, which basically measures how fast the momentum is changing, is actually negative. So what on earth does that mean? Well, think back to our car. It means the car is still moving uphill, but the driver has definitely eased their foot off the gas pedal a bit.
Okay, so let's recap. The trend is up, but the momentum, it's showing signs of slowing down. We need a tiebreaker here, and that brings us to our third and final clue. Let's track the volume. See, volume tells us all about conviction. Were a lot of people behind this move, or just a few? And the data here is crystal clear. 122 million shares. That's way higher than the recent average of 100 million. This high volume tells us there was some serious belief and a whole lot of participation behind that big price jump.
All right, let's lay all our clues out on the table. We've got a strong bullish trend. We've got momentum that's hot, but maybe starting to fade. And we have massive volume showing real conviction. So, where does that leave us? Now we get to the really fun part, seeing how analysts take all these clues to try and figure out what might happen next.
So when you crunch all these numbers, the analysis basically spits out probabilities for 3 possible futures. There's about a 50% chance the bullish move continues, a 30% chance things just go sideways for a bit, and a 20% chance of a reversal. The odds are definitely leaning towards the upside, but it's not a slam dunk by any means.
And this is where it gets super practical. The analysis gives us specific price levels, lines in the sand, to watch. For the bulls to stay in charge, Intel needs to break through that 3871 resistance level. If it can't, it might just bounce around in that neutral zone. But if it drops below $38, well, watch out below, because the next stop could be that support level way down at $36.93. These are the road signs for what's coming.
So, after examining all the clues, the trend, the momentum, the volume, what's the final verdict from our investigation into Intel's big day?
You know, this single line from the report just sums it up perfectly. You've got all the good stuff, the 3% gain, the bullish moving averages, the positive MACD, but then you have that one big warning sign, that near overbought RSI, practically screaming for caution. It's a classic tug of war, isn't it? Positive trend versus overheating momentum.
And you can actually put a number on that feeling of caution. This is the risk-to-reward ratio for anyone thinking about buying the stock right now. And that number, 0.134, is really low. It's basically the data's way of whispering, hey, proceed with care here. The potential risk at this very moment might just outweigh the potential reward.
So there you have it. We peeled back the layers on that big, shiny 3.36% gain, and it's a lot more complicated than it looks, isn't it? The data paints a picture of cautious optimism. The trend is strong, no doubt, but some of those warning lights are definitely starting to flicker. The numbers give us the clues and the probabilities, but as we all know, at the end of the day, the market always has the final say. So the question is, what do you think happens next?